I've been using the Amazfit Active 2 smartwatch for about a month now, putting it through its paces on various workouts, various kinds of workout, and it claims it has a new heart rate sensor. Basically a typical kind of thing. It consists of two very powerful green LEDs and what look like four round sensors. There's a sensor in the middle here and there's two little sensors either side. And this is supposed to give more accurate readings than the previous watch. Well, let's have a look and see what actually happens in reality. And here, what I'm doing is comparing it with the Polar H10, which is the gold standard for heart rate sensors. First of all, I went up into the mountains and I did some classic cross-country skiing, and I'll show you what the results are from that. If I expand that up a bit, the blue line is the Active 2 and the red line is the Polar, which is a heart rate strap. And as you can see, there's quite a bit of divergence between the two of them. Now you can say, okay, which is right? Well, I would suggest that the readings from the Polar are more accurate if you actually have a look at, I haven't got it up on the screen here, but if you look at the profile in terms of altitude, where the Polar goes up here is where I was climbing hills. There's a couple of fuddies here. For example, there's a dropout of some sort. That might just be my software that's comparing the two, but what you can see is it initially starts tracking well and then it kind of loses track and then it re-picks up the heart rate, tracks it again, loses track. Here it locks on, but it seems to have trouble following the highs and it often loses sync. There are places though where it's very close, and we can even drill down into those areas to see what that actually means. So here it seems to have tracked very closely towards the end. Let's have a look at that, zoom in there. You can see, yeah, it's a bit flaky, but overall, if we go back to the overview, for me it's done a pretty poor job of tracking heart rate on this sortie, which was over a 2-hour period. So I went out again, of course. This time it was more cross-country skiing. I'll bring that up. It was skate skiing this time rather than classic skiing, and it basically consisted of going around the loop with a hill in it. And I mean, maybe the Polar had some trouble. The problem with the heart rate straps, if they are dry between the strap and the chest, they won't pick up a good signal. So sometimes they take a while to, as you sweat, to get a bit of moisture so that they get a good contact with your chest, which seems to be the case here. But here we've got the Active 2 going way up to 180. Maybe that was the case because the start of this trail has a bit of a climb at the end. And here there seems to have locked on, they seem to be synchronized. But again, a lot of trouble with the data here. Little seems to be synchronized, here it seems to be synchronized. So there seems to be moments where it locks on, gets good reading. And personally I'm going to go with the H10 being the more accurate measures. See there, kind of follows reasonably well, but as the heart rate goes up, and these are where hills are on the course, the Active 2 was desynchronizing and then eventually picking up the heart rate again. So that's pretty, so far, so disappointing. So what I thought was, as you can see, my wrist is reasonably dark, skin is reasonably dark, and there's quite a lot of hair on it. So what I did was I wore the watch on the back of my wrist. You can see no hair and much lighter. And I went out again, and what did I do? This run. This is another cross-country ski. So I haven't got any running, so I had trouble getting data from running, but I'll show you a run in a little while. And here, this is wearing the watch, as I said, on the back of my wrist, and has a bit of an initial problem, but it seems to track a lot more closely what's going on, but it's still not perfect. I mean, again, I can get down into the weeds and zoom in maybe on this data here. Kind of, I mean, there might be a bit of a delay in one or other reading, but so that's not brilliant. So it seems to be having quite a bit of trouble compared to the polar. And again, I think the polar readings are more accurate, just based on the profile. And finally, last comparison, and you'll see, again, I went out and let me just run that program again. This is a cycle ride, and Eureka! A lot better tracking. The problem here, I think, was the polar wasn't making good contact with my chest, and it took a while to lock on, but afterwards you can see much better tracking. But again, here for example, the polar, this is actually the end of a long climb. This is the col here, where I reached here, and you see that the Active 2 tracked pretty well until this point, and then it lost synchronization with the heart and finally re-picked up again. But in general it's not bad, but there are definitely problems with the Active 2, at least for me. Other people may have different experiences. So somewhat flaking tracking, you have to wear it, but here you see it's pretty close. You have to be careful how you wear it. As I said, I was wearing it on the back of my wrist. All is not lost. You can connect the Active 2 to a Bluetooth heart rate monitor. So I can connect it actually to my Polar H10. And just in favour of the Active 2, I had occasions when the Polar H10 wasn't sitting properly, or it didn't have good contact with the skin, wasn't moist enough, and it didn't read anything. It didn't pick up any reliable readings at all. So the H10 isn't perfect either, although you can say that's user error. You see this funny little glitch here, that's when I went through a tunnel. So it didn't actually make any readings during this time because it wasn't getting any GPS signal. But here I come down a steep hill, and again I was in the city, and the Active seems to have lost track, because here I was having to do some sprints to the lights, stuff like that. So this seems more reasonable on the face of it. Okay, so not wonderful. Is it usable? Well, I went out and did a run, and in this is one of the examples where the H10 didn't give me any usable data, so I wasn't able to compare. But if we look at this run, it was basically 4 intervals of 1 kilometre, and this is the heart rate. So this is a run. If I zoom out a bit, and basically 4 times 1k, and what I was doing, I'd run the 1k, and then I would wait for my heart rate to drop back down to 115, and at that point I'd be prompted. So I was using a workout template on the Active 2. I'll be prompted to run another k, rest, 1k, rest, and you hear the heart rate's going up to about 165, a little bit higher at the end. I don't know if I can see the max heart rate. No, it doesn't give that to me, but if I put an overlay of pace on there, you'll see exactly what I was doing. So these runs, and heart rate would go up, getting up to about the high 160s, 170, which is, that seems like reasonable data for running, without maybe doing a too precise analysis. But there was another problem. So it gives you what they've done actually. This is quite like using the Garmin Connect software. I exported the workout, the fit file, from the ZEP interface into Garmin Connect, and then I opened up Garmin Connect and I could use the Garmin Connect software to analyse that, because with the Active you've only got the phone application, which I'll show you in a second, to analyse your workouts, and it's not necessarily the easiest or the clearest interface depending how big your phone is. So here we can see the intervals 1, 2, 3, 4, and you see first one was at a pace of 5:38, which seems about right for me at the moment. Distance 1k, heart rate, average heart rate, max heart rate, and it's a virtually flat course. I don't know about the power readings, how accurate they are. It's interesting, it's estimating power. And here 5:36, a little bit quicker. It could be the case of a slight downhill at the start of this one, but average heart rate's a bit higher and the max heart rate's quite high as well. But here suddenly we see the last two are much slower, 6:23, 6:10, and I thought, if you look at the heart rate, 162, average heart rate is higher, average heart rate's higher again, max heart rate is pretty much around the maximum I was doing, and I thought that's a bit strange. The speed felt about the same. So I had a look at the map data, and I'll tell you why this probably is. So first interval was this section along here, and it's alongside of a river, so it's open on the left, and you've got a fairly clear view of the sky. Next interval's through the start of the park. Again, it's by the side of a lake, and it's a big wide road, and there are a few trees but not that many, so again the sky is fairly clear. But here we're in the road, we start to get into denser trees, and what I think happened, if I zoom in, you'll see here, and we'll look at navigation a bit later, it's tracking along the path. It loses sync here a little bit, but it tracks along the road pretty well. This was the second interval, starting around about here. You can see the blue is where I was having a rest, and the green orange is where I'm running. And you see here, it should really be tracking along this road. The map's accurate, and it's actually not getting good GPS fixes here, and so the actual 1k that it's measuring is too long. I'm actually having to run longer, having to run further. So what I'm really doing is running around this road here, but what it's measuring is this smaller route here, shorter route here, like it's taking a virtual shortcut. So I think my pace is probably pretty much the same, but it's being shown as slower. So the GPS has trouble where it doesn't have a very clear view of the sky. Again, I have this rest here, and again it's tracking on the inside of the circles, so the circumference here especially is a bit less. So it should be on this road here. Again, lots of trees and some buildings over here. So that's a problem. If you want accurate intervals, you need to have a clear view of the sky. If you're running in woods or whatever, you might get misreadings and the data it's giving you isn't accurate. And you can see when you get into the town, it starts to get very flaky. Normally does a bit better than this. I'll show you some, when I look at navigation, I'll show you that. But I came across here, I ran down this road, ran up this road, and then went down this road here. So it's all over the place there. So you see these very high speed sections aren't really high speed sections, it's just because the GPS data is jumping around. So you've got two problems. A heart rate monitor, you've got to be very careful how you wear the watch, and I haven't, in comparison with the Polar H10, got totally precise heart rate data, although here I think the interval data, or the actual, if I zoom out on that, I think the actual heart rate data is pretty accurate enough for training, at least for running intervals and recovering from intervals. And the other problem is the GPS not tracking properly, so it's giving you incorrect pace information. There we go. I'll keep testing, see if I can get better, but it's obviously sensitive to two things: how you wear the watch, so I'm wearing it on the back of my wrist, which isn't necessarily that convenient, and how clear a view of the sky the GPS can get. So if you're running around cities, towns with tall buildings like I am at times, there are issues. We can go into the Zep app and have a look at that workout. Select workout history, and it was that's the cycling workout we looked at, and this is the 4x1. So I basically use the Zep application to create a 4x1 kilometer workout template, and between each 1 kilometer interval I rest until my heart rate comes down to 115. And on the map you get a similar view to Garmin Connect. The orange is where I'm running, and the bits in yellow are where I'm having a rest. Generally it was about 2 minutes 30. So it's actually, I had to really slow down because I'd got my heart rate up quite high here. And once again, if I zoom in, you can see that clearly I didn't run across this Oxbow Lake here. I was running on the road just to the right of the track, so it's not recording GPS data accurately where the sky is partially obscured. And if we look down, we have similar data to the ones we get in Garmin Connect. Graphic of heart rate, so you can see the intervals there quite clearly. Heart rate zones, power, interesting. Altitude, it's pretty flat actually, so it's varying between 190 and 170. It's got a barometric altimeter which it synchronizes off GPS data initially, so it tends to be fairly accurate in that viewpoint. Cadence, I don't know, 126 to 172 is reasonable, and stride length from about 94 centimeters to 158. I've been trying to lengthen my stride a little bit recently. Training effect says it's very good. Here you can see pace, but it's just basically on kilometer markers, but because it records the interval information, we've got exactly the same information as we've got in Garmin Connect. We can see the 1K runs with the rests in between. Is the distance and the actual length of rest. So first 1K took 5:37, then a 2:17 rest, 5:35, 2:04 rest, 6:23. So again, I think that data is incorrect. I think it's due to the GPS not reading correctly. And then a 2:45 rest, so quite a long rest that time, and then 6:10 for the interval. But similar kind of data to Garmin Connect if you just want to analyze things on your phone.